The buzz is out. Raheem Morris is getting even more traction this time around. Could he be a head coach in the NFL again? That is the hope, at least for me, as somebody that likes him, but also selfishly, I don't want him to leave. We'll dive into it. Before we do, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Let's get into it. So, as always, you can also follow me at JKBogan on all social media. Raheem Morris, right? Steve Weish, who is a friend of the show, he's been on before on NFL Network. He had a nice little video that I thought was pretty interesting on NFL Total Access, saying that basically a coaching candidate to keep an eye on is Raheem Morris. The success of former defense coordinator of the 49ers, DeMeco Ryans, and what he's done with the Texans, people like that, like those type of coaches, those culture builders and things like that, could really sway and work in Raheem Morris's favor to get a job this time around, because you see the job he's done, developing guys on the defensive side like Kobe Turner. But in addition to that, he's just so well liked. Actually, we just had news come out that the coaches poll for, all the different assistant coaches, he was ranked the 5th out of all of the defensive coordinators. He was in the top 5 of most liked, so by the players. So this is somebody that, yes, he could absolutely get a coaching job this time around. I'm going to break down exactly what that means if he does leave the Rams. There'll be plenty of content about the playoff game, so don't worry about that. But I wanted to address this, and I'll be addressing Pete Carroll leaving the Seattle Seahawks in another video and what that means for the Rams long term. So let's just dive into this, though. First off, obviously, big fan of Raheem Morris. He came here, a lot of pressure on him to immediately succeed. I mean, you look at all the players they had, obviously that makes sense. They did win the Super Bowl his first year, but coming off a season where Brandon Staley had the Rams, arguably the greatest defensive team the Rams have ever had, and that includes even the fearsome foursome Rams in the 60s. That team had the number 1 defense in the league, and a lot of people felt like there was no excuse Raheem Morris should do that. That was not the case. Raheem Morris was running kind of a defense he didn't run before. So what we ended up finding out is that he was pretty damn good, and he wasn't, getting the same results as Staley, but winning the Super Bowl in your first year, impressive. Defense showed up in a big way in the playoffs, impressive. And then 2022, you have a bevy of injuries, but then you look at what Raheem Morris was able to do, with all these different guys that were out in the secondary and so forth. And yeah, I mean, this offense that couldn't move the ball, and he's keeping them in all these games going in the fourth quarter, every single one but the Chargers game. So then you fast forward to 2023. Raheem Morris gets the ball rolling. A team, literally starts out in Seattle to open up the season, and no one thinks this team's going to be any good. I mean, obviously, I thought they'd be good. A few of you did, but a lot of people felt like this team was going to be bad, and Seattle was going to be the number 2 seed in the NFC West. Well, Week 1, Raheem Morris's defense pitches an absolute clinic and a shutout in the second half of that game. And you start to see that despite the fact they don't have as much talent as the Super Bowl team, so to speak, Raheem Morris is getting the most out of this defense, and kept him in a lot of those games when the offense was staggered early on in the season, whether it was with Kyren or without Kyren. Then finally the offense started to pick up, and now, again, the defense is making plays late in games. So Raheem Morris would be a significant loss, I believe, if the Rams did lose him to be head coach. However, I hope he gets that job. I think he's well overdue. Since the merger, he is the only one to have, I believe it's 10 plus rookies starting on his roster, 10 plus new rookies starting on his roster and have a winning record. He initially started off his career not winning a lot of games. I believe he won 3 games in his first season, or 4 games. And then the next year he finished with 10. So look, it didn't work out with Tampa, although I think he was more scapegoated than anything. I didn't think the general manager did as great of a job as he should have. But Raheem is back. He's ready to go. He was an interim head coach for the Falcons when they let go of Dan Quinn. Ironically, Quinn could find himself another head coaching job this circuit. So let's talk about the implications here, what this truly means. Well, if the Rams do lose Raheem Morris, they would be getting 2 third-round picks due to the minority coaching hire compensation. Due to this, I have the picks right here listed in front of me so I don't get any of them wrong. If the Rams get a third-rounder, to get 2 third-rounders for Raheem getting hired as a head coach, then they will quite literally have a third rounder this year and next year. So they get a third rounder right into this draft. So kind of a huge deal there. If they did that, their picks would be as followed: first, second, third round compensatory with Raheem Morris. The fourth was traded away for Kevin Dotson, so no fourth. A fifth rounder via the Steelers, Kevin Dotson. That was part of the pick swap. And then the 5th round compensatory pick for Baker Mayfield because he finished top 5 in the NFC in passing touchdowns. Basically what that does for the formula is it increased his value. It increased his, how much he's getting paid this year because of the incentive bonus, which put him into the 5th round compensatory pick spot as opposed to being a 6th rounder. The Rams also get a 6th round pick for Matt Gay, a 6th round pick for Nick Scott, and a 6th round pick for A'Shawn Robinson. So altogether, the Rams have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 picks this time around. Good stuff there. However, you have to also keep in mind it's not just finding good. You're losing a good defensive coordinator, really good defensive coordinator, one of the top in the league, if he does get hired. So it is a loss. The compensatory picks are great, but it is a loss. And furthermore, it could be a bigger loss than that because you have to worry about potential losses in the coaching circuit. Look, if Raheem Morris goes somewhere and he becomes the head coach, he is going to be able to bring some guys over. This is how it is. It is customary to allow a former defense coordinator, offense coordinator who becomes a head coach, bring over some of the staff. So the Rams, once again, will likely end up getting poached, their coaching staff. Raheem Morris, I think there's a bunch of different guys. Mike LaFleur, currently the offensive coordinator for the Rams. He does just about everything except for call plays. If Raheem Morris gave him the play calling duties and called him an assistant head coach, that would be considered a promotion. Therefore, Mike LaFleur would be able to jump ship and the Rams wouldn't be able to block it. Another one here, Zach Robinson, quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator. The Rams, and mainly Sean McVay, hired him straight from Pro Football Focus. That's right, PFF. This is a former quarterback. Obviously he's been working with the quarterbacks and he's very well liked and, gives a lot of, he got a lot of praise for getting Baker Mayfield prepared to play on, 48 hours notice. But Zach Robinson would be a huge loss. And all, Raheem would have to do if he wanted to go there is give him an offensive coordinator job. That's considered a promotion. Same thing with Rams passing game specialist Jake Peetz, who's been around for a little bit. Same thing, you wouldn't be able to block him if Raheem wanted him to be the same position, because you can block a lateral move, but you also can't take somebody in a lateral move unless, both sides agree. So the Rams and mainly Sean McVay could block Jake Peetz. However, Peetz is also being rumored in the potential head coaching circuit in college, so there's the chance he leaves anyway. Offensive assistant KJ Black. He's an offensive assistant, could very well, get a promotion there. In-house with the Rams, quarterback coach, working with the quarterbacks anyway. If he was moved to even a passing game coordinator, with Raheem Morris's staff, then he could leave. Same thing with Nick Jones, offensive assistant, who's been around for 3 years. And, this is somebody that works with the offensive line. So he could be brought in maybe as an offensive line assistant coach or offensive line coach. But either way, they can do that. Ron Gould, however you say his name, the running back coach, he's done a great job this year, obviously. I don't see him leaving. I feel like he's one of those kind of running back coach lifers, those position coach lifers. I don't see him leaving, but if he does and wanted a shot, Raheem could certainly try and promote him, bring him over. Same thing goes for Eric Yarber. who's been the wide receiver coach since 2017 with the Los Angeles Rams. I do not see him leaving at all. I think he's a wide receiver coach through and through, and that's what he'll stay. Nick Caley, the tight ends coach brought over from New England. I think he's done a nice job this year in the tight end room. And and I'll say this, Morris could definitely bring him over as a passing game coordinator or so forth. Think Wes Phillips back when he was with the Rams. He was brought over to the Vikings with Kevin O'Connell. This stuff happens all the time. Brandon Staley tried to bring over a little bit too many people over, and the Rams did end up blocking a few of them. But that is neither here nor there. The point is that Nick Caley would have an opportunity to get promoted, and he could leave if it is a promotion. Same thing goes with any of these guys, whether it's assistant offensive line coach, Aaron Cromer's son, Zach Cromer. If he was considered the offensive line coach and say the run game coordinator, that'd be a promotion. Assistant special teams coach, Jeremy Springer. He's had 2 years of experience with the Rams. If he was brought in as the special teams coordinator, it'd be a promotion if the Rams don't move on from Chase Blackburn. Defensive assistant Mike Harris, same thing. Assistant defensive line coach AC Carter, who I would imagine if Eric Henderson were to leave who is currently the defensive line coach and the run game coordinator, if he was to leave and be the defense coordinator for Raheem Morris, AC Carter would likely take over as the defensive line coach. But worth mentioning that AC Carter is the assistant defensive line coach. So if that did not happen, he could very well get promoted via a move to Raheem Morris's potential coaching staff. Same thing goes Eric Henderson. He may feel like, he should be the defensive coordinator. And if the Rams went in a different direction, I could see him leaving and being defensive coordinator with Raheem Morris over wherever he went. Linebackers coach and pass rush coordinator, Chris Shula. He's somebody as well. I think he's somewhat of a dark horse to be a defensive coordinator for the Rams, should Morris end up getting hired. So he could also leave if not, and I wouldn't be surprised there. Joe Caniglio, I'm going to say he's one to watch out for, but I think that's somebody that Sean McVay wants to continue to develop. He's very new in the coaching circuit. He played at Miami of Ohio, so I think Sean McVay is going to want to keep him around. Aubrey Pleasant, same thing goes for him. He waited for a defensive coordinator job, didn't get it the first time around with Brandon Staley, stayed around. Then Raheem Morris was hired, and he ended up going to the Lions. He was fired. Then he was brought in as an offensive, quality assistant with the Green Bay Packers, and then he came back to the Rams. Should he join Aubrey Pleasant, or should he join Raheem Morris? Could be as a defensive coordinator, would be a promotion, would be able to leave. And then secondary coach, Chris Beek. No one on the entire staff has the experience Chris Beek has. He's going into his 25th year, 26th year. More experienced and older coaches typically stay in the great situations that they're in. So this could be an opportunity for Beek to potentially be a defensive coordinator if he wanted to towards the end of his career, but I don't really see that. So then we move on to the defensive coordinator replacements. And for me, when I'm looking at the replacements for Raheem Morris, I'm thinking of guys like Aubrey Pleasant. I'm thinking of guys like Eric Henderson. I'm thinking of guys like Chris Shula. I think those guys in-house will get, obvious, interviews. And they should. It looks good when you promote guys from within, but also these guys can stay within, the construct of what this defense is all about. Aubrey Pleasant has been around since, 2017, albeit he left for a year, came back. Eric Henderson, he's also been around for a bit since Bill Johnson was gone. So then you have Chris Shula, who's been around for a while. So I think all those guys have an inside track. My guess would probably be Pleasant or Henderson, or I'll get into that name. Chris Shula is the dark horse here, though. I would not be surprised if, Sean McVay does promote him. But yeah, I could see all of that. Anyway, Joe Caniglio is a super, super dark horse guy to keep an eye on. Outside linebackers coach, again, fellow alum at Miami of Ohio. Really, good connection with Sean McVay. So, that's that. And then I think the best outside, like the most likely out of house type of guy, Jim Leonard. Okay, he was the Wisconsin defensive coordinator. Then he became the Wisconsin interim head coach. Then they got rid of him. Now, it's important to remember this because the former interim Wisconsin coach himself was once highly sought after by Sean McVay during the 2020 coaching search. They ended up going with Brandon Staley, but Jim Leonhard decided that he wanted to stay in college and stay with his alma mater. That's what he wanted to do. He did not want to leave Wisconsin. He wanted to coach there probably the rest of his career. However, that's not what ended up happening. He was let go. He's now the Illinois senior football assistant. He's currently the favorite to become the defense coordinator at Colorado with Deion Sanders, but it's not guaranteed. And I'll tell you this right now, if the Rams came knocking and they came calling again, I think Jim Leonhard would hear him out. He's a defensive mind that I think the Rams would like, and he is the perfect guy to go out and get if you look at this as the end of that defense. If you feel like Raheem Morris getting hired means you need to change your defense up, then you go out and you get outside influences like Jim Leonhard, and you start to put together what you've learned, since working with these guys like Wade Phillips and Brandon Staley and Raheem Morris, and you put that together with Jim Leonhard. And now when you start to mix philosophies, it makes you a better football team. And with this league, you always have to be one step ahead. So I wouldn't rule that out. I also wouldn't rule out entirely, although I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't rule it out entirely. Former Chargers head coach Brandon Staley, who was the number one, he coached the number one defense in the league in 2020 when he was the Rams defensive coordinator. Again, this would be more so, okay, we're going to stick with the defensive, the current defensive philosophy, with what we're doing right now. That would be the move if they wanted to do that. I do think that this would kind of rub people the wrong way, especially Aubrey Pleasant. This is somebody that I think definitely deserves at least a shot to be defensive coordinator. And if he lost it again to Brandon Staley, who, by the way, wasn't inside the organization until they hired him, that would be, I don't think I would like that. The next one here is a guy who just resigned from the Giants, Wink Martindale. Wouldn't be surprised if he receives some head coaching interviews this circuit. He's really good, really scary. A Wink Martindale defense might not work in a line with what Sean McVay is trying to get done, but at the same time, Sean McVay saw that scary defense, and, they saw them firsthand in week 17, put a lot of pressure on Matthew Stafford. He's very aggressive, kind of similar to Greg Williams, but I feel like he has more controlled aggression, whereas Greg Williams would just safety blitz all the time, and it would be ridiculous. Wink Martindale is aggressive, though, so you would have to be ready to change up your defensive philosophies and let Wink do his thing. And that's one thing. I don't know if Wink Martindale and Sean McVay would work, because I feel like Sean McVay still wants to have a hand into the pot when it comes to the defense. And we saw it. Wink Martindale and Brian Daboll did not work. The rumor is that Wink Martindale got really upset because Brian Daboll fired two of his assistant coaches. And I just think that while it'd be fun to have Wink Martindale, and he's one of the best, defensive coordinators in all of football, I just don't know if his philosophy aligns with what the Rams are trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish. It would change up a lot. And essentially, if they got Wink, they would probably have to change up their personnel, which I guess if they were going to do that, they would do it upcoming with this new era of football, approaching here, the era after Matthew Stafford, after Aaron Donald, and so forth. But I don't really see it happening. Plus, you have to understand, if you get Wink Martindale for a year, you're probably having him for a year, because if he goes to the Rams and he does really well with Sean McVay, he's going to be a head coach. Moving on, we have Antonio Pierce, the Raiders' current interim head coach, was the linebackers coach. Josh McDaniels was fired. Pierce took over. Pierce has this team playing really hard. Defense has played well as of late. I'm not super familiar with Pierce's defensive philosophies or anything like that, but I do think that he would be an intriguing option to look at. Kind of similar to Rich Bisaccia, who the Packers ended up hiring. Another interim coach that did well at the Raiders that they moved on with. I think it'd be a mistake to move on from Pierce, just like I kind of thought it was a mistake to move on from Bisaccia, but that's neither here nor there. Moving on to another linebackers coach currently with the New England Patriots, Gerard Mayo. I know everyone hears Bill Belichick coaching trees and they think they're cursed and it wouldn't work out. I think Mayo would work out. Here's the issue, though. Mayo very much is in consideration to be a head coach. And that's the funny thing about it. He's a linebackers coach, inside linebackers coach, but he is one of the favorites to become the Patriots head coach now that Bill Belichick is moving on. So that's an interesting one there. But I do think I like the idea of McVay injecting some of the aspects of Bill Belichick's philosophies on defense into what he does. So again, you get that outside influence. We've seen what the offense can do since they went out and got Mike LaFleur, who was kind of connected to that Kyle Shanahan offense. Just furthermore, right? Like obviously, cut from the same cloth, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, but they do things a little differently, the verbiage and what have you. And while it's different than when Mike LaFleur was there, Mike LaFleur has learned quite a bit from his time with the Niners, and he has poured that into the Rams offense. So there is a very, very big, pro to going out and getting outside influence for the head coaching, the coaching staff. DeMarcus Covington is another one, up-and-comer defensive line coach for the Patriots, doing a really nice job there. Would be kind of the same vein, again, up-and-comer, young, and then just of the same thing with Bill Belichick and bringing his outside influence. Anthony Weaver, who's done a great job at developing the Ravens defensive line. He is the defensive line coach. Mike McDonald would probably bring him because Mike McDonald, who's their defensive coordinator, who replaced Wink Martindale, he's likely going to go and become a head coach. And if he does, I imagine he's going to bring Anthony Weaver with him potentially, or Weaver will replace him with the Ravens. So there is a chance that if McVay wanted to dip into the Mike McDonald pool of defensive knowledge, this would be an intriguing change. But at the same time, I think he'll end up following him, so I don't know if he'll be an option. The last one here, Joe Witt Jr., the defensive backs coach for the Cowboys. I just kind of feel like, he's done a great job with the defense. You look at the 5th round pick, Deron Bland, who was drafted, 2 years ago. And I think he's done a really nice job developing these defensive backs. And he's somebody that now Dan Quinn, if he left, Witt Jr. would be up for the defensive coordinator job, I think, in Dallas. I think he'd also be up for a defense coordinator job going with Dan Quinn wherever he went to. And obviously right now the rumors are that Seattle could be the favorite for Dan Quinn's services. But I think really if I was to throw names in the hat, the 4 names that I would throw in that I feel really confident it's going to be one of them for defense coordinator if Raheem Morris gets hired. Jim Leonard, he's my favorite outside candidate. I think he brings in great outside influence. I think obviously Sean McVay, that was his guy before he went with Brandon Staley. There was a lot of, rumors about that and a lot of reports about it. And then Aubrey Pleasant, Eric Henderson, Chris Shula. So you get 3 inside guys that I think the Rams could consider. And then I think Jim Leonard. I am not at all against him going back to Brandon Staley. He did a great job. And, look, his head coaching thing and how that whole thing ended, he's not a head coach right now. Maybe that changes, but that should have no effect on what he did with the Rams in 2020. He did an excellent job, and he doesn't deserve the disrespect that he has received in some aspects there. But I like Jim Leonard as an outside influence, and I feel like if that happens, then you're kind of changing, you're reinventing your defense. If you want to keep what you're doing, after Raheem Morris, I'm bringing in one of Aubrey Pleasant, Eric Henderson, or Chris Shula and telling him to get the job done as my defensive coordinator. But who do you guys think? Who's going to be the defense coordinator for the Rams? Will Raheem Morris stay? Is he going to get hired? I'm curious what you guys think in the comment section below. How do you feel about this team that found Puka Nacua in the 5th round, that found Kyron Williams in the 5th round, that found Jordan Fuller in the 6th? How do you feel about them getting another 3rd round pick, though, if Raheem Morris leaves? A lot of stuff to take away from this, but I'll say this. You can't underestimate the loss of Raheem Morris. I do think that would have some ripple effects that Careful what you wish for is what I would say. But that's it for me. Be sure to like, subscribe, and you can follow me on social media at JK Bogan. I'll see you guys soon.
Start playing Pick'em or Weekly Fantasy for any sport today, Jake. Users will receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 if they use promo code OTE at sign up. Start playing Pick'em and Weekly Fantasy Football today with Underdog Fantasy.
Do you love talking about the Rams, the NFL, or just want to be a part of a community? Join my free Discord server today. We're over 800 members. We got 24/7 live chat, a level 3 boosted server, the ability to call into JE Live, playing online games with us on Kick streams, toggleable alerts for when I go live on YouTube or Kick so you don't miss a live stream, and exclusive giveaways. Click the link in the description, the comments section, or the link that comes up in the video to learn more and join today.